Well, since there's now a new official Danganronpa game coming soon, I think the best thing I should do is probably create another prediction list as to who may be the culprits, victims, and survivors for each chapter. Now, let's head on to the video. First of all, we should probably discuss how this will play out. Since this is just a different scenario, then most likely it's just another branch of the timeline from the original Danganronpa 2. However, it was also sort of hinted that it could change what happens in the anime, which is sort of curious to think about. But if it isn't too far off a change, then we can assume that the characters still won't truly die, which means even if they got development in the previous games, the creators won't be afraid to kill the characters if their fate remains the same. However, if the same ending with Juko and Ashima remains the same, then the essence of a chapter 6 wouldn't be the same, which is why I think that one scenario that alters the timeline will probably dealt with at the end of chapter 6, which probably has a relation to the difference including that Nagito is wearing the teaser trailers. Anyways, let's head on to the predictions. Keep in mind, I don't have a definitive reason for how these situations could happen, but I do feel like their time could be up at the moment. Anyways, I think that the first victim could be Chiaki. If in the original Chiaki was the traitor, then it wouldn't be much of a reveal if she stayed, which means what most likely could happen is that she dies first, which also follows the Danganronpa pattern in which the first death is somewhat unexpected. Nagito could be an unexpected victim, but with how popular he is, it would feel more of a disservice considering how many know about Kamayeda but not the Danganronpa trilogy itself. For the culprit, I believe there would be a protagonist switch, which means that it's time for Hajime to go. Considering how this is a new scenario, what more, and kick it up a notch by making Nagito the new protagonist. In this way, the viewers are able to see a different lens when playing, and if we do see the eyes of the messed up one, then this new scenario will truly be different. Also, since Hajime being Izuru Kamakura was a pivotal moment in chapter 6, then the ending wouldn't need to tackle that, but focus on something different, like how this new scenario came to be. Now, let's head on to chapter 2. For these, I don't have much of a strong opinion on it, but the victim could be Teruteru. With how much he's hated by the fandom, it would make sense to kill him off early. While I do understand that there could be a redemption arc, I can't really see him making it far. Also, if the motive remains the same, then the outcome of Twilight Murder Syndrome wouldn't really change, unless the two people that were supposed to die in Chapter 1 remained alive in Chapter 2, then their presence could very well affect the outcome. For who could have killed him, I'd say probably Nekomaru. Okay, I don't really have a reason why he could be tied to the motive, but I do think he could die before chapter 3 because of how I think it could heavily affect the life of a different character. Aside from that, I don't really have much of a reason. Let's move on to the next chapter in which I think Akane will die. She wouldn't be a victim nor a culprit, but rather executed by Monokuma. You know how in chapter 3, Akane was supposed to be executed, but was interfered with because of Nekomaru? Well then, how could he interfere if he's already dead? This would make the story more despairing, as the students will feel as if they truly have no freedom. And considering how after chapter 3 they had hope since Nekomaru remained alive and became a robot, well now that may not happen and despair will just continue. For the victim, since Akane is already dead, there wouldn't be any double murder, but I think that the victim could be Ibuki again. Honestly, I don't really know where else she could be placed, but the fact that she's the comedic relief, and since chapter 3 is usually the point where things get serious, then the funny ones always end up dying so soon. The culprit, however, is probably the time that Fuyuhiko goes. If the motive in chapter 2 remains the same, then that could make him feel as if he's targeted, which could increase his paranoia. Considering that Mahiru and Peko are both still alive, his redemption arc wouldn't happen, and he'll still be closed off from others. He'd probably keep his murder a secret from Peko so that she wouldn't be a tool, and after his death, she could finally start acting on her own will. Now, for chapter 4. If the motive is still hunger, then I think Kazuichi is probably the victim. He already made it far in the original, and considering who I think the culprit could be, this is the right time to kill him off. The culprit will most likely be Sonia. Since she has been a princess, this would probably be her noble sacrifice. She's also a crime enthusiast, which could cause her to create an even more complicated murder. It also makes sense for her to kill Kazuichi, because if her goal is to keep them safe, then most likely she'll sacrifice the life of someone she views as a peasant for the betterment of the rest. Now, in chapter 5, this is probably the one I found troubling to think of, but I'd say the victim could be Gundam. Since after the death of Sonia, it could affect him too dearly, to the point where he becomes an easy target. I just don't think that the rest of the characters are still more prominent. That's why I chose him at this spot. While for the culprit, it's probably Mikon. Considering she's a smart character, if her motive this time is cracking under the pressure rather than a disease, then it would make her death much more impactful and relatable, as many people are viewed as weaklings but don't have the courage to stand up for themselves. Anyways, now we're at chapter 6, and normally no one dies here, but I'd say it's probably the imposter's time to go. It would be a great change of pace if this time they're investigating a body rather than the surroundings, considering we've already investigated it before in the original. If this chapter 6 lore reveal is different, then it would be better if the investigation is different too. I don't yet have an idea as to what this ending could be, but I feel like the characters remaining are probably a good bunch. The last four characters remaining are Mahiru, Hiyoko, Peko, and Nagito, and I believe they're probably the survivors. Alright, I think Mahiru is a really great character that should have been explored more, since she's intelligent and definitely has a strong presence. She could very well be the support character to Nagito and make her try to learn more about him. For Hiyoko, there's just been so many videos and people saying she should have been a survivor. And now that 2x2 is happening, then this is the perfect time for her to become a survivor. Although Mahiru's survival could hinder her growth, Mahiru could still be the one to guide Hiyoko and teach her to be better, in which she'd be the one to get the redemption arc in place of Fuyuhiko. Next up is Peko. And if her story is about loving her true self and not seeing herself as a tool, then it's something very impactful and could relate to the audience. This story of hers should be explored more, as it offers a lot of room for growth. If this is how she plays out, then she'd probably end up being one of the most loved characters in Danganronpa. Lastly, the most chaotic boy himself, Mr. Nagito. Considering how much the fandom either despises him or adores him, it would feel wrong to kill him off early, but it would also be a crime not to let him make it far. He's probably one of the faces of Danganronpa, and with how much his talent is, it could probably be utilized more and could very well be related to its new chapter 6 and with this new scenario. Anyways, that was a lot. And well, my theories are still changing day by day, but that's why I want to hear your thoughts and predictions down below. Anyways, I'm Maris. And if you want to watch more videos like this, then feel free to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one.